Rain lashed against the grimy windows of the 14th precinct, turning the neon sign outside into a bleeding smear of red light. Inside, the air hung thick with stale coffee, sweat, and the low thrum of fluorescent bulbs. Detective Marcus Bell barely glanced up from his paperwork when the door creaked open. Another night, another parade of misery. Then he saw him. Malik Johnson stood framed in the doorway, rainwater dripping from his dreadlocks onto the cracked linoleum. His clothes, faded jeans and a threadbare hoodie, were plastered to his skin, but it was his eyes that froze Bell mid-sentence. Not fear, not anger, resolve. A rookie officer, Jenkins, dropped his coffee cup. The porcelain shattered like gunfire in the sudden silence. "I'm turning myself in," Malik said, his voice cutting through the hum of the precinct. "For the Kingsley Street shooting." Every head snapped toward him. Kingsley Street. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. 3 weeks ago, a botched drug raid. 2 officers dead. 1 suspect, Malik Johnson, vanished into the night. The city had screamed for blood. Bell pushed back his chair, the legs screeching. "Hands where I can see them, Johnson." Malik complied, slow and deliberate, as Jenkins fumbled for his cuffs. The other detectives watched, hands drifting toward holsters. Bell circled him, taking in the gaunt lines of his face, the way his knuckles whitened when Jenkins tightened the cuffs too hard. "Why now?" Bell asked, stepping close enough to smell rain and exhaustion on Malik's skin. "Because running's exhausting." Malik's gaze never wavered. "And I'm tired of being hunted for a crime I didn't commit." A dry laugh came from Sergeant O'Malley's desk. "Funny timing. Chief's press conference praising our closure on the case is tomorrow." Malik's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I know." The interrogation room was a concrete box smelling of bleach and desperation. Bell slid a file across the metal table. Crime scene photos spilled out. The splintered door of the Kingsley Street apartment, bloodstains blooming dark on cheap carpet, the broken bodies of officers Rivas and Donnelly in their tactical gear. "Ballistics matched your cousin's gun to the bullets," Bell said, tapping a photo of Malik's cousin, Terrell, lying dead beside Rivas. "Witnesses put you at the scene. Terrell's phone shows texts from you an hour before the raid." He leaned forward. "Why'd you run, Malik?" Malik studied the photos, his expression unreadable. "You ever notice what's missing from these pictures, detective?" Bell frowned. "What?" "The body cameras." Malik lifted his cuffed hands, gesturing at the photos. "Rivas and Donnelly. Where's their footage?" Bell's jaw tightened. "Malfunctioned. Tech glitch. Convenient." Malik leaned back. "Just like the anonymous tip that sent them to that apartment. Just like the warrant signed after they kicked the door down." O'Malley's voice crackled over the intercom. "Enough games, Bell. Get his confession." Malik's gaze locked onto the mirrored glass where O'Malley watched. "I'll confess," he said, loud enough for the mic to catch. "To trespassing. That's it. I was in the basement fixing Ms. Evans' water heater when your boys kicked in her door." Bell scoffed. "And you just happened to be there?" "My cousin called me. Said cops were circling the block. Said he was scared." Malik's voice dropped. Terrell wasn't dealing. He was snitching, feeding intel to Donnelly about the real players on Kingsley. Guess someone found out. The intercom went dead. Bell stared at him. The department's narrative was clean. Rogue dealers, heroic officers, justice served. But Malik's words left cracks. "Why come in now?" Bell pressed. "If you're innocent, why not talk to a lawyer?" "To the press?" Malik's fingers brushed the edge of the photo showing Terrell's body. "Because I have something better than a lawyer." He met Bell's eyes. "I have proof." The fluorescent light buzzed like a trapped fly as Bell processed Malik's words. "Proof." The word echoed in the sterile room, sharp and dangerous. "What proof?" Bell kept his voice low, conscious of the recording device blinking red on the table. Malik shifted, the handcuffs clinking. "Not here. Not with him listening." He nodded toward the mirrored glass. Bell hesitated. O'Malley wasn't just his sergeant. He'd led the Kingsley raid. Trusting Malik felt like stepping onto rotten ice. But the cracks in the official story were widening. The missing body cam footage, the rushed warrant, Terrell's rumored cooperation. "Talk," Bell said, leaning closer, his voice a near whisper. "Or this ends now with you in a holding cell." Malik's eyes held a flicker of something bleak. Ms. Evans' security camera. The one pointed at her basement window, facing the alley. It recorded everything. Bell froze. The alley. where the anonymous tip claimed the dealers used for escapes, where the raid's backup team had been staged. The footage shows them. Malik continued, his voice flat. Rivas and Donnelly. They didn't knock. Didn't announce. Kicked the door so hard the frame splintered. Terrell was asleep on the couch. He jumped up, grabbed his gun, the one Donnelly gave him for protection weeks ago. Malik paused, the memory tightening his face. He recognized Donnelly. Lowered the gun. Said, Sarge? What's? Malik swallowed hard. Rivas shot first. Twice. Center mass. Terrell went down. Then Donnelly. He just stood there. Staring. Rivas yelled about hostile, threat neutralized. That's when Ms. Evans came out of her bedroom screaming. Rivas turned, and Donnelly shot him in the back. Bell felt the room tilt. Donnelly shot Rivas. Then himself in the thigh, Malik said, his voice devoid of emotion. Made it look like a firefight. Called it in screaming about a second shooter. That's when I ran. I saw it all through the basement window. The intercom crackled back to life, O'Malley's voice tight. Bell. My office. Now. Bell stood, his chair scraping loudly. His mind raced. If Malik had this footage, why surrender? Why not release it? As if reading his thoughts, Malik spoke, his eyes fixed on the mirror. The camera uploads to the cloud. Password protected. If I don't log in every 48 hours. He let the thread hang. It gets emailed to every news station in the city. Bell found O'Malley pacing his cramped office. Rain streaked the window behind him, turning the city lights into watery smears. That junkie's spinning tales, O'Malley snapped before Bell could speak. Trying to smear good officers to save his own skin. The footage, Bell started, doesn't exist. O'Malley slammed a fist on his desk, making a framed photo of the Kingsley raid team jump. He's bluffing, playing on your soft spot for lost causes. Bell stiffened. He knew the label. The detective who spent too long on cold cases, who questioned clean shoots. He knew about the alley staging. About Terrell possibly informing. Details not released. Lucky guesses. O'Malley leaned in, his breath smelling of stale coffee and mint. Listen to me, Marcus. This case is closed. The city's moved on. The chief's announcement tomorrow brings healing. This scumbag shows up now? With a fairy tale about Donnelly? He shook his head, his eyes hard. Donnelly had a wife. 2 kids. A spotless record. And Rivas. Bell countered. You really think he'd botch a raid like that? He was careful. By the book. Until Kingsley. O'Malley roared. He took a breath, lowering his voice. Look. Process Johnson. Book him. Let the DA sort his lies. Your shift ended an hour ago. Go home. It was an order, not a suggestion. Bell turned to leave, his hand on the doorknob. Bell, O'Malley added, his voice softer, almost weary. Terrell Johnson was a low-level snitch playing both sides. He got spooked, fired on officers. End of story. Don't throw away your career for his lying cousin. Outside O'Malley's office, the precinct buzzed with renewed energy. News of Malik's surrender had spread. Reporters were gathering outside. Jenkins approached Bell, his young face pale. Sarge says to put Johnson in holding cell C. Jenkins said, avoiding Bell's eyes. Says you're off the clock. Bell looked toward the interrogation room. Malik sat perfectly still behind the mirrored glass, head bowed, cuffed hands resting on the table. He looked less like a fugitive and more like a man waiting for an execution. Give me 5 minutes with him, Bell said. Alone. Jenkins hesitated. Sarge said, 5 minutes, Jenkins. Bell's tone left no room for argument. Then I'm gone. Bell re-entered the interrogation room, closing the door firmly. He didn't sit. Where's the login? He asked, his voice low and urgent. Malik looked up, exhaustion etched deep around his eyes. Why? So O'Malley can delete it. To verify it, Bell insisted. If you've got what you say, it changes everything. Changes it for who? Malik challenged. For Rivas and Donnelly's families? They'll still be dead. For Terrell? He's still gone. For me? He gave a bitter laugh. I'm still the fugitive who walked in. They'll say I hacked the footage. Planted it. They'll bury me. Not if I see it first, Bell pressed. If it's real, I can protect it. Get it to the right people. The right people? Malik's gaze was piercing. Like O'Malley? He was in charge of the raid, Bell. Command vehicle parked around the corner. You think he didn't hear the shots? The radio silence after? You think he didn't help craft the story? Bell felt a chill. O'Malley had been the first high-ranking officer on the scene. He'd briefed the chief personally. Give me something. Bell pleaded. A hint. A location. Before they transfer you downtown and you disappear into the system. Malik studied him for a long moment. The rain drummed harder against the precinct roof. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely audible. Ms. Evans' birthday. The password. Her cat's name plus her birthday. He leaned forward, his chains scraping the table. But you better move fast, detective. Because if O'Malley finds out you're still digging. He didn't need to finish. The intercom buzzed, harsh and insistent. O'Malley's voice. Bell? My office. Now. Bell met Malik's eyes. A silent understanding passed between them. Bell wasn't just risking his career now. He was stepping into the crossfire. He turned and walked out, leaving Malik alone in the harsh light. As he headed toward O'Malley's office, Bell passed Jenkins. The rookie was talking urgently into his phone, his back turned. Bell caught only a fragment, whispered, Yeah, he's asking about the footage, needs the cloud storage address wiped. Bell stopped dead. The blood drained from his face. Jenkins wasn't just following orders. He was O'Malley's eyes and ears. The trap wasn't just set for Malik. It was closing around Bell, too. The fluorescent lights in the hallway seemed to pulse, casting long, distorted shadows that mirrored the turmoil in Bell's gut. Jenkins's whispered words, wiped, hung in the air like poisonous gas. Bell didn't break stride. He walked past Jenkins, ignoring the rookie's startled jump and guilty flush, and headed not towards O'Malley's office, but towards the bank of lockers lining the back corridor. His locker. His personal phone was inside. O'Malley controlled the precinct landlines, the department mobiles, the radios. Bell's civilian phone was his only lifeline. He fumbled with the combination lock, his fingers slick with cold sweat. Every second felt magnified. The distant murmur of the precinct, the rhythmic drumming of rain on the roof, the heavy tread of boots down the hall, all potential threats. He yanked the locker open, grabbed the phone, and slammed the door shut just as heavy footsteps rounded the corner. Jenkins and another officer, Vargas, a burly man with a perpetually suspicious squint, blocked the narrow corridor. Detective Bell, Jenkins said, his voice unnaturally loud, trying to project authority he didn't possess. Sergeant O'Malley wants you in his office. Now. Vargas crossed his arms, a silent, hulking reinforcement. Bell slipped the phone into his pocket, forcing his face into a mask of weary annoyance. Tell O'Malley I'm clocked out. Heading home. We can talk tomorrow before the press circus. He took a step forward, aiming to brush past them. Vargas shifted his bulk, subtly blocking the path. Sarge said now, Bell. Didn't sound like a request. His eyes, small and dark, scanned Bell, lingering on the pocket where the phone bulged. The air crackled. Bell knew pushing physically would be disastrous. He also knew O'Malley wouldn't let him walk out. Not now. He needed space, time to think, to access that cloud storage. Asterisk Ms. Evans' birthday. Her cat's name. Asterisk he had nothing. He'd never met the woman. Malik was his only source, and Malik was cuffed in a room under O'Malley's watchful eye. Fine. Bell conceded, injecting a note of grudging resignation into his voice. Lead the way, Jenkins. But make it quick. I'm soaked and starving. He gestured for them to proceed. Jenkins looked momentarily flustered, glancing at Vargas. Vargas gave a curt nod. Jenkins turned, heading back towards the main bullpen, Vargas falling in step beside Bell, close enough to be intimidating. Bell walked mechanically, his mind racing faster than his feet. How long before O'Malley ordered a search? How long before they found his phone? How long before Malik was transferred to a holding facility downtown? Out of reach? Vulnerable? As they passed the main desk, Bell saw Malik being escorted by two uniformed officers towards the holding cells. Their eyes met for a fleeting second. Malik's gaze held a question, a flicker of desperate hope. Bell gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head, a warning. Malik's jaw tightened, and he looked away, his shoulders slumping slightly. The sight sent a fresh wave of anger and helplessness through Bell. This man had walked in voluntarily, trusting the system, and the system was already grinding him down. O'Malley was waiting outside his office door, arms crossed, his face a thundercloud. Took you long enough, Bell? Get in here. He jerked his head towards the open door. Bell stepped inside, Vargas lingering ominously in the doorway. Jenkins hovered nervously behind him. O'Malley shut the door with a soft click that felt louder than a slam. He didn't sit. Johnson spinning a dangerous web of lies. O'Malley began, his voice low and tight. Fabricating stories about Donnelly? About the raid? It's disgusting. It's an insult to their memory, to their families, to this department. He provided specific details, Bell countered, keeping his voice level. The alley staging. Terrell Johnson's potential status as an informant. The basement window vantage point. The malfunctioning body cams. It's consistent. Consistent with what he could have guessed. O'Malley snapped, slamming his palm down on his desk, making the pens rattle. Or been fed. He's got connections, Bell. Lowlifes who'd love to see this department take a hit. Who'd feed him just enough truth to make the lies stick. He leaned forward, his eyes boring into Bell's. He mentioned footage. Security camera nonsense. Where is it? Did he give you a location? A password? The directness of the question confirmed Bell's worst fears. O'Malley wasn't just trying to bury Malik. He was actively hunting the evidence Malik claimed existed. Bell felt the weight of his phone in his pocket like a live grenade. He mentioned a cloud storage, Bell said carefully, opting for a partial truth. But no specifics. He's playing it close. Doesn't trust anyone. Understandably. He let the last word hang, a subtle barb. O'Malley's eyes narrowed. Doesn't trust anyone? Or just doesn't trust you to handle it properly? He paced a short, tight circle behind his desk. This footage, if it exists, which I highly doubt, is critical department business. It needs to be secured, assessed by professionals, not left floating in some digital ether where any hacker or activist could grab it and twist it. He stopped pacing and fixed Bell with a stare. Your job, Marcus, is to get that location and password out of him. Use whatever leverage you need. His family? His freedom? Make him understand cooperation is his only path out of this. The implication was clear. Threaten Malik. Pressure him. Break him if necessary. Bell felt a cold knot form in his stomach. This wasn't about truth or justice. It was about containment. O'Malley wanted control of the narrative, control of the evidence, regardless of what it showed. Threatening a suspect in custody to obtain information, Bell started, his voice tight, is standard procedure when dealing with uncooperative felons lying to obstruct justice. O'Malley cut him off. Don't go soft on me now, Bell. Not on this. Not after Kingsley. He softened his tone slightly, adopting a fatherly concern that rang utterly false. Look, I know you want to do right. But sometimes protecting the greater good means making tough choices. Protecting this department, protecting the reputations of good men like Donnelly and Rivas, that is justice. Johnson is trying to burn it all down. Don't help him. He walked around the desk and clapped a heavy hand on Bell's shoulder. The gesture felt like a manacle. Get back in there. Get that login. Report directly to me. No one else. Understood. His eyes flicked towards Vargas still standing in the doorway. Vargas will assist you. Ensure compliance. Assist. Ensure compliance. Bell understood the euphemism. Vargas was O'Malley's enforcer, a man known for his rough methods and unwavering loyalty to the chain of command, particularly when it suited his own ambitions. Having Vargas in the interrogation room meant Malik was in physical danger, and Bell's ability to maneuver would be severely hampered. Understood, Sarge, Bell said, the words tasting like ash. He turned and walked out, Vargas falling into step beside him, a silent, menacing shadow. Jenkins scurried ahead, avoiding Bell's eyes. The walk back to the interrogation room felt like a march to the gallows. Malik looked up as they entered. His eyes widened fractionally when he saw Vargas, a flicker of primal fear breaking through his earlier resolve. Bell took his seat opposite Malik, Vargas positioning himself deliberately against the wall behind Malik, arms crossed, his presence filling the small room with an oppressive weight. Mr. Johnson, Bell began, his voice sounding strained even to his own ears. Sergeant O'Malley is concerned. He wants assurances regarding this alleged footage. Its location. How to access it. Malik's gaze darted from Bell to Vargas and back. I told you. I'm not giving that to O'Malley. Vargas shifted his weight, the leather of his duty belt creaking ominously. Maybe you need some help remembering, he rumbled, his voice low and gravelly. Bell held up a hand slightly, a gesture meant for Malik as much as Vargas. Mr. Johnson, refusing to cooperate only makes your situation worse. Sergeant O'Malley has authorized additional resources to encourage your cooperation. He stressed the word resources, hoping Malik would understand the implicit threat. Malik leaned back, a sardonic smile twisting his lips. Additional resources? You mean him? He jerked his chin towards Vargas. Let me guess. If I don't talk, I might accidentally trip on my way to a cell? Or maybe have a sudden allergic reaction to handcuffs. Watch your mouth, punk, Vargas growled, taking a half-step forward. Malik, Bell said urgently, leaning forward, trying to make eye contact, trying to silently communicate the peril he was in. This isn't a game. Give me the login. Let me verify the footage exists. That's all O'Malley wants right now. Verification. Malik studied Bell's face. He saw the tension, the fear Bell was trying to mask, the subtle plea. He saw Vargas, a coiled spring of violence behind him. He saw the red light of the recording device blinking steadily on the table. He knew whatever he said next could be his doom or his only chance. The password, Malik said slowly, deliberately, his eyes locked on Bell's, is based on something only someone who knew Ms. Evans would remember. Something personal. Something simple. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Vargas shifted impatiently. Her cat, Malik continued. Whiskers. And the day she found him. July 10th, 1985. He recited the date clearly. Whiskers 071085. Bell's mind scrambled. Whiskers 071085. It was specific. Plausible. But was it real? Was it a test? A trap for O'Malley? Or Malik's genuine last gamble? Vargas grunted. See? Was that so hard? He pulled out his own phone. I'll relay it to the Sarge. Get the tech guys on it. He started typing. Panic seized Bell. If O'Malley got the login first, the footage would vanish forever. Malik's leverage, his only protection, would be gone. And so would any hope of the truth. No, Bell said sharply, standing up. Vargas looked up, startled. Protocol, Vargas. I handle the evidence chain. Especially digital. O'Malley was clear. I report directly to him after verification. He held out his hand. Give me your phone. I need to note the exact details for the report. Then I'll call O'Malley myself. Vargas hesitated, suspicion darkening his features. He glanced at the blinking recorder, then back at Bell. Sarge said report directly. He didn't say anything about you handling the tech. The login is evidence, Vargas, Bell insisted, his voice hardening, projecting authority he didn't feel. Obtained during my interrogation. I log it. I secure it. That's the procedure. You want to explain to O'Malley why you bypassed chain of command and potentially compromised critical evidence. He kept his hand outstretched, unwavering. The word compromised hit home. Vargas valued his position, his proximity to power. He didn't want to be the one blamed if something went wrong. With obvious reluctance, he handed his unlocked phone to Bell. Make it quick, Bell. Bell took the phone, his heart hammering against his ribs. He opened the Notes app, pretending to type Malik's password. Whiskers 071085. He memorized it, etching it into his mind. He needed to access it himself. Now, before O'Malley's tech team could. But how? He couldn't use Vargas's phone for that. He had his own phone, but using it here, under Vargas's watchful eye, was impossible. He finished typing the dummy note. Password. Whiskers, July 10th, 1985, deliberately omitting the numerical format. There, he said, handing the phone back to Vargas. Logged. Now, I need to use the restroom. Then I'll call O'Malley. He stood up, trying to project casual urgency. Vargas looked at the note on his phone, then at Bell. Bathroom's right there. Make it fast. I'm not explaining delays. He nodded towards a small door in the corner of the interrogation room. A cramped, private restroom. A common feature in newer precinct interrogation suites. It was a sliver of privacy. Bell's only chance. He walked to the door, stepped inside, and locked it. The tiny space smelled of disinfectant and mildew. He pulled out his personal phone, his hands trembling so badly he almost dropped it. He opened a web browser. Asterisk cloud storage. Ms. Evans. What service? Malik hadn't said. Asterisk panic surged again. There were dozens. He had seconds, maybe a minute, before Vargas got suspicious. He thought frantically. Asterisk common, free services. Dropbox? Google Drive? iCloud? Asterisk it could be anything. He typed Dropbox login into the search bar. The page loaded agonizingly slowly on the precinct's overloaded Wi-Fi. The login screen appeared. Username? He had nothing. Malik hadn't given a username. Only a password tied to a cat and a date. Think, Bell, Ms. Evans. Elderly woman. Kingsley Street. Probably not tech-savvy. Malik had been fixing her heater. Maybe he set it up for her? Used her name? Her address? He typed Evans into the username field. Too common. Ms. Evans. Martha Evans. He didn't even know her first name. He tried Kingsley Evans. Nothing. Ms. Martha Evans. Error. He heard a sharp rap on the bathroom door. Bell. What's taking so long? O'Malley's waiting. Just a sec. Bell called back, his voice cracking. Sweat dripped into his eyes. The camera uploads to the cloud, Malik's words. What brand of security camera? He had no idea. Different brands sometimes used proprietary cloud services. He was grasping at straws. He tried Google Drive login. Another slow load. Username field. Same problem. He typed Whiskers071085 on a whim, hoping against hope the username was the same as the password. Error. Another, louder bang on the door. Bell. Open up. Now. Vargas's voice was angry. Bell's finger hovered over his phone. He had one desperate idea. He quickly opened his email app and drafted a new message. He typed the only address he could think of that Malik might have access to, the one linked to his own phone number. His number, at txt.att.net. He typed frantically in the subject line, Cloud Service? Username. Urgent. He hit send just as the doorknob rattled violently. He flushed the toilet for cover, splashed water on his face, and unlocked the door. Vargas stood there, face flushed, hand resting near his baton. What the hell were you doing? Phone call. Bell lied smoothly, holding up his personal phone as if he'd just ended a call. My kid's sick. Wife stressed. Told her I'd be late. He slipped the phone back into his pocket, praying the email had sent. Let's go call O'Malley. Vargas glared, but stepped back. Bell walked out, his mind screaming. The email was a shot in the dark. Would Malik even get it? Did he have access to a phone? Was the address right? And even if he did, how could he possibly reply without Vargas noticing? Bell picked up the landline phone on the interrogation room desk. Vargas stood close, listening intently. Bell dialed O'Malley's extension, his eyes meeting Malik's across the table. Malik looked exhausted, defeated. Bell gave a minute shake of his head, a silent message, asterisk not yet. Hold on, asterisk. O'Malley answered immediately. Bell? You have it. Yes, Sarge, Bell said, keeping his voice neutral. Johnson provided the password. Whiskers, July 10th, 1985. He claims the username is linked to Ms. Evans' name or address, but couldn't recall specifics under pressure. He's sticking to the cloud storage story, but without the exact service or username. It's unverifiable at this moment. He deliberately downplayed the lead, hoping to buy time. There was a long pause on the other end. Bell could almost hear O'Malley's mind working. Unverifiable, O'Malley repeated, his voice dangerously soft. Or inconvenient. Get the service and username, Bell. Use whatever means Vargas deems necessary. I want that footage found and secured tonight. Do you understand me? The threat was explicit. Bell's eyes flicked to Vargas, who was watching him with a predatory glint. Understood, Sarge. He hung up. The silence in the room was thick enough to choke on. Malik looked terrified. Vargas cracked his knuckles. All right, Johnson, Vargas said, taking a step towards the table. Enough stalling. What's the damn website? And what's the username? Malik shrank back in his chair. I told you. It's cloud-based. I don't know the exact. Vargas moved fast. He slammed his palm down on the table right in front of Malik, making him flinch violently. Wrong answer. He leaned in, his face inches from Malik's. You think this is a joke? You think you can waltz in here, slander dead cops, and walk away? Give me the login details. All of them. Now. Bell started forward. Vargas, easy. Stay out of it, Bell. Vargas snapped without looking away from Malik. O'Malley said, whatever means necessary. This punk needs to learn respect. He grabbed the front of Malik's hoodie, twisting the fabric. The service. The username. Malik gasped, panic flaring in his eyes. I can't remember. Please. Vargas raised his other hand, fist clenched. Bell lunged, grabbing Vargas's forearm. That's enough. Back off. Vargas whirled, shoving Bell hard against the wall. Bell's head cracked against the concrete, stars exploding in his vision. Vargas loomed over him, fury contorting his face. You protecting this lying scumbag, Bell? You on his side now. Before Bell could respond, before Vargas could strike Malik or him, A sharp electronic chirp sounded from Bell's pocket. Loud. Insistent. His personal phone. An incoming text message. The sound froze Vargas mid-snarl. His eyes dropped to Bell's pocket, then snapped back to Bell's face, suspicion hardening into cold certainty. You sneaky son of a... He reached for Bell's pocket. Bell reacted on pure instinct. He ducked under Vargas's grasping hand and drove his shoulder into the bigger man's gut. Vargas grunted, stumbling back into the table. Malik instinctively jerked his chair back. Bell didn't hesitate. He bolted for the interrogation room door, yanking it open and sprinting into the hallway. Stop him! Vargas roared from behind, recovering quickly. Bell ran, not towards the exit, but deeper into the precinct, towards the evidence lockup corridor. Less traffic, more potential hiding spots. He fumbled for his phone as he ran, dodging a startled clerk. He pulled it out. The screen showed a new text message from an unknown number. His heart leaped. It had to be Malik. He thumbed it open. The message contained only 2 words. Eyes on secure. User, Marthy_apt4b. Asterisk Martha Evans. Apartment 4B. Asterisk the username. And the service, Eyes on Secure. A specific, lesser-known home security cloud service. He skidded around a corner, hearing Vargas's pounding footsteps and shouted commands behind him. He spotted a small, disused janitor's closet. He wrenched the door open, slipped inside, and pulled it shut just as Vargas and another officer ran past. He leaned against the door, gasping, the darkness punctuated only by the glow of his phone screen. He had it. The key. But Vargas knew he had it. O'Malley knew. The entire precinct would be locked down. He was trapped, hunted within the very walls he was sworn to protect. Malik was alone with Vargas, and the clock was ticking down to Malik's 48-hour deadline. The race wasn't just against deletion, it was against his own department's violent determination to bury the truth. He opened the browser, fingers trembling over the keys, praying the signal held in this cramped, dark closet. Asterisk Eyes on Secure. Login, Marthy_apt4b. Password, Whiskers071085. Asterisk, he hit enter. The screen showed a loading icon, spinning. The loading icon spun, a tiny, agonizing pinwheel of light in the stifling darkness of the janitor's closet. Every second stretched into an eternity, punctuated by the muffled shouts and heavy footfalls echoing in the corridor outside. Vargas was close. O'Malley's net was tightening. Bell held his breath, the phone screen casting a sickly glow on his sweat-slicked face. Asterisk, please. Please work. Asterisk. The screen flickered. Changed. Login successful. Welcome, Martha Evans_apt4b. A list of folders appeared. Most were innocuous. Heater repair, grocery lists, cat photos. One folder stood out, labeled simply, Kingsley, Security Cam, Alley View, dated the day of the raid. Bell's finger hovered over it. This was it. Proof. Or oblivion. He tapped. A video player opened. The timestamp glowed in the corner. 3:14 p.m. The view was slightly obscured by rain-streaked glass, looking out from a basement window onto the narrow alley behind the Kingsley Street apartment building. Graffiti-stained brick walls. Overflowing dumpsters. A service door clearly visible. His heart hammered against his ribs as the seconds ticked on the video. 3:15 p.m. Nothing. 3:16 p.m. Stillness. Then, movement at the alley entrance. 2 figures in tactical gear, moving with tense purpose. Officers Rivas and Donnelly. They approached the service door. Donnelly gestured sharply. Rivas raised his boot. The sound was muted, but the violence was unmistakable. The door shuddered, then splintered inward with a force the camera visibly registered. They disappeared inside. Seconds crawled by. The alley remained empty. Then, a muffled shout from inside. A figure stumbled into view through the broken doorway. Terrell Johnson, shirtless, eyes wide with terror, clutching a handgun. He wasn't pointing it. He was holding it limply at his side, staring back into the apartment, his mouth moving in what looked like a plea. Rivas appeared in the doorway, his service weapon raised. Terrell flinched, raising his hands defensively, the gun dangling from his finger. He said something, his face contorted. Rivas fired. Twice. Terrell jerked violently, collapsing onto the wet asphalt. Bell's stomach clenched. It was cold. Calculated. No imminent threat. Donnelly appeared behind Rivas, his face a mask of shock. He stared down at Terrell's body. Rivas turned, saying something, gesturing back inside. Then, as Rivas took a step towards the alley, his back momentarily to Donnelly, Donnelly raised his own weapon. His hand shook visibly on the video feed. He fired once. Rivas arched forward, a dark bloom erupting on his back. He crumpled face first beside Terrell. Donnelly stared at his own gun, then at Rivas's body. Pure panic etched his features. He looked frantically around the alley. Then, with a grimace of agony that looked horrifically staged, he turned his pistol slightly and fired into his own thigh. He dropped to one knee, screaming soundlessly into his radio. Malik had told the truth. Every devastating word. The closet door handle rattled violently. Bell, open this door. Now. Vargas's roar was inches away. Bell didn't hesitate. He stabbed the screen, downloading the video file directly to his phone. The progress bar crawled. 10%. 20%. He slammed his shoulder against the flimsy door, bracing it as Vargas threw his weight against it from the outside. The wood groaned. 30%. 40%. The door jamb splintered. Bell's eyes darted around the dark closet. Cleaning supplies. A mop bucket. A small electrical panel on the wall. The Precinct PA system, a desperate, audacious idea sparked. He needed time. He needed witnesses Vargas and O'Malley couldn't silence. As Vargas heaved again, Bell lunged for the electrical panel. He yanked it open, fingers scrambling over unfamiliar wires. He found the thick cable feeding the overhead speaker in the hallway outside. Ignoring the risk, he ripped it loose, then jammed the bare ends into the terminals of the small backup battery unit powering the emergency light in the closet. A shower of sparks erupted. The emergency light died. But outside, the hallway speaker, now directly wired to the battery, emitted a piercing, ear-splitting screech of feedback. Vargas yelped, stumbling back from the door, hands clapped over his ears. The ungodly noise echoed through the corridor, disorienting, painful. Other officers appeared, bewildered, covering their ears, shouting questions drowned out by the din. Bell used the chaos. He wrenched the damaged closet door open. Vargas was momentarily stunned, disoriented. Bell didn't fight. He ran. Not away, but towards the bullpen, towards the heart of the precinct, clutching his phone where the download bar now read 85%. 90%. O'Malley burst from his office, face purple with rage. Silence that noise. Grab Bell. Bell dodged a reaching hand, skidded around a desk. He spotted it. The main AV control panel for the briefing room, used for press conferences and internal meetings. It was usually locked, but in the chaos, it was unattended. He sprinted for it, fingers flying over the touchscreen, bypassing the simple login with a tech sergeant's override code he'd seen used months ago. 95%. 100%. Download complete. He found the input source selector. Selected mobile device mirroring. Frantically, he paired his phone. On the large screen at the front of the briefing room, his phone's home screen flickered to life. What is he doing? O'Malley bellowed, pushing through the gathering crowd of confused officers and civilian staff drawn by the screeching feedback, now mercifully dying as someone cut the power to the speaker. Vargas was regaining his bearings, charging towards the briefing room. Bell found the video file. He tapped it, opened it. The timestamp 3:14 p.m. filled the large screen. The rain-streaked alley view. The entire bullpen fell silent, officers frozen mid-step, eyes glued to the horrific scene unfolding in high definition on their own briefing screen. They saw Rivas kick in the door. The agonizing wait. Terrell stumbling out, unarmed, pleading. Rivas's cold execution. Donnelly's panicked betrayal. The self-inflicted wound. The desperate radio call. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Disbelief. Horror. Revulsion. Jenkins turned green, staggering back. Senior officers stood rigid, faces ashen. O'Malley reached the doorway, his command dissolving into incoherent fury. Turn it off. That's fabricated. Unauthorized. His voice died as he saw the footage, saw his officers' faces. Saw the undeniable truth playing out on the screen he'd planned to use for his triumphant press conference. Bell stood before the screen, facing the room, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. Raw but clear. This is what happened on Kingsley Street. This is why Malik Johnson ran. This is what Sergeant O'Malley and Officer Vargas have been trying to bury. This, He pointed at the frozen image of Donnelly screaming into his radio beside the bodies he'd created. Is the lie they sold you. Sold the city. Sold the families. Vargas lunged at Bell, blind rage replacing tactics. But before he could reach him, two burly patrol officers, their faces set in grim lines, intercepted him, grabbing his arms. Enough, Vargas, one growled. Just enough. O'Malley stood alone in the doorway, the authority draining from him like blood from a wound. He looked around the room at the faces of his subordinates, faces filled with betrayal, confusion, and dawning anger. The empire of lies he'd built was crumbling under the weight of undeniable truth broadcast on his own stage. Down in the holding cells, Malik Johnson heard the sudden silence, then the muffled uproar from above. He didn't know what had happened, but the frantic energy, the shift in the very air of the precinct, told him something had broken. He closed his eyes, leaning his head back against the cold concrete wall, a single tear tracing a path through the grime on his cheek. It wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It was the profound exhaustion of a man who'd carried the crushing weight of truth and finally, felt others begin to shoulder it too. The fight wasn't over. Investigations would crawl. Excuses would be made. Systems resist. But the seed of truth, raw and ugly and undeniable, had been planted in the heart of the very institution that tried to bury it. The long, painful road to accountability had just begun, paved not with vengeance, but with the simple, terrifying power of light shone into the darkest corners. Malik knew the cost of that light. So did Bell, standing amidst the wreckage of his career and his beliefs. And as the first gray light of dawn began to seep through the precinct windows, washing away the harshness of the fluorescent night, the real work, the slow, hard graft of building something better, something worthy of the truth they now held, finally had a chance to begin. Moral of the story: true justice isn't found in the silence of covered lies or the triumph of the powerful, but in the courage to uphold the light of truth, however heavy its burden, knowing it's the only foundation strong enough to build a future worth living in.